What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the Giants had their first joint practice with the Detroit Lions today, traveled all the way over to Michigan, Detroit, and went ahead and played a really poor practice today, according to all the reports that we're seeing. The Giants' offense really struggled, the offensive line struggled, and the Lions looked like the far better football team in the first day of joint practices. But do not hit the panic button, guys. It is just practice. It is only day one of the joint practice. Daniel Jones, yes, he did struggle today, and we're going to go ahead and dive into that, but Daniel Jones has been lighting it up all throughout camp. Finally having one bad practice, that's kind of what you expect. After 10 straight good practices, him having one bad practice is not that crazy. Let's see how he bounces back tomorrow. Now, we know that the Giants and the Detroit Lions will be facing off on Friday night for the preseason opener. We're really excited about that. Of course, we're going to update you on everything about the preseason opener right here on Fireside Giants, but we got one more practice between the Giants and the Lions tomorrow afternoon. Let's see how our team responds after a pretty shaky first joint practice today. But okay, we're going to go ahead and dive into all the takeaways from today's practice. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, and what are your thoughts on the Giants offense struggling at the first day of joint practices?
I'm doing good, man. And look, a lot of people, and for what it's worth, not a lot of the Giants community is freaking out. In the past, we might have. Not a lot of the Giants community specifically. I think some of the beat writers tried to kind of sensationalize the importance of these joint practices and like how bad Daniel Jones played or how bad the offense looked. And they want to kind of get an outrage going because it helps them. It helps the media, generate clicks and generate revenue. And we know this. We're part of the ecosystem. But at the end of the day, we're gonna bring it back down to life, guys. The math doesn't add up here. A lot of people saying like, "Oh, Daniel Jones had a terrible practice. The Giants looked awful. This and that." Let me give you some context into why I don't give an absolute shit about Daniel Jones struggling today. Like Anthony, like you said, 10 straight days of great practices. Why does one bad practice eliminate all of that momentum and success? I bet you Daniel Jones comes back tomorrow and has a much better day, has a couple touchdown throws, has a much better kind of performance. And look, the truth is when you're playing against the same exact defense every single day and it's scripted and there's things going on, and then suddenly you're going into a whole different atmosphere, a whole different mentality, like against new players, against this, against that. They're trying to confuse Daniel Jones. They're trying to make it more difficult. And the truth is, he had a tough day, missed some throws, and he obviously knows like, okay, I gotta clean that up. He didn't seem concerned at all. He's like, I have to, do a little bit better is what it is. What else? I mean, guys, it's freaking practice. This is what practice is for. It wouldn't exist. Joint practices, guys. It's freaking practice. Like, why are people getting crazy about it? It makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. These are when you're supposed to make the mistakes. How many times have you heard like Aaron Rodgers throws 3 interceptions in practice? No one gives a crap because he's Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like, it happens to the best players in the league. You have a bad practice. I watched Kayvon Thibodeau get bulldozed by Andrew Thomas the other day. It doesn't make me think that Kayvon Thibodeau isn't a stud. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sensationalize these things because you're supposed to make these mistakes. You're supposed to throw into triple coverage if there's nothing else. Like if Aiden Hutchinson gets into the backfield and you're going to get sacked, the play is dead. Toss it up there and see what happens. And then like, oh my God, he threw the interception. Yes, he threw it up there to see if his guy can make a play. Like they're scripted like this. In a real game, you're not throwing it up, you're getting sacked, or you're not going to be scripted. Like, these things are just ridiculous to even talk about because it makes no sense. And you make the mistakes in practice, so you don't make them on game day. Am I worried about the Giants offense struggling against the first joint practice against the Detroit Lions? No. Are you kidding me? People that are, you're freaking crazy. You're insane. You're foolish. Stop. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But you know what? I'll tell you what. Hopefully they bounce back tomorrow, have a good day, quiet the doubters, keep things quiet on the media side of things, make people happy. I think most of the media is on our side in this and saying like it's not that big of a deal. There's some people out there that are like making it more than it is, because I think it's just fun to get everyone riled up and whatnot, like I am right now, because it just really irritates me. But I'll say this. Let's take a look at why this happened, like why Daniel Jones maybe had a bad day. Where we think it goes from here. And like I said, you're going up against a new defense that have different strengths and weaknesses. And early on in practice, I heard that the Giants were killing their defensive backs. Apparently, the Detroit defensive backs coach was yelling and screaming and cursing at them for the first 30 minutes of practice. So I don't know, maybe that they did do some good stuff there. I know there was some red zone drills that Giants struggled with, but look, at the same time, guys, why on earth does anyone think that Mike Kafka and Brian Dable are going to show them their creative red zone packages in a joint practice, guys? Why does anyone even think for a second that they're showing them anything resembling our playbook in a joint practice, okay? It's not going to happen. They're running the most vanilla plays. They're running the most basic concepts. They're not giving anything away. Why would you give them the game plan? Why would you let other teams, because all of this is filmed, right? It's all going to be coming out on the highlight packages, on this and that. Everyone, there's scouts there. Everyone's there. It's all over social media. Why on earth would you show them your playbook? Because everybody else in the league is going to see it. You think the Dallas Cowboys aren't thinking, let's go check out what the Giants are doing. Let's see if we can see any plays. Oh, wow, they're lining up this way. Now we know on game day, week 1, what they're going to do. No, it's freaking ridiculous. I'm going to leave it there before I get my freaking blow a gasket, Anthony. What are you thinking about this right now?
I think you need to take a nice deep breath, maybe take a sip of water, calm down, let's do some yoga, let's meditate. Know you love your hot yoga. Okay, so the Giants, yes, I agree with you. People are blowing this whole thing out of proportion. It wasn't nearly as bad of a practice as other people are saying. I want to focus on some of these positives now, right? You're frustrated, I get it, not necessarily by the Giants' performance, but by the way that the media is reacting, and that's totally justified. But let's be the good guys in the media. Let's talk about John Michael Schmitz. Held his own, had a really solid day of practice. That's what I'm reading about. That's what I'm taking away from this practice. Could I take away that Daniel Jones struggled and that the Giants are not putting their full playbook out there? Duh. Yeah, I could take that away as well. But what I want to take away, John Michael Schmitz looked like the truth. If you guys didn't see, the Giants this morning released their first unofficial depth chart. John Michael Schmitz slotted in there first team. Now that's what you love to see, guys. That's really exciting because we know that Brian Dable has made it really clear that it's still a competition. It's not just John Michael Schmitz's job. He's a rookie. He's got to earn it. Well, it seems like he's earned it already. He'll be starting on Friday's game against the Detroit Lions. This is the first unofficial depth chart, yes, so it could change, but come on, guys. John Michael Schmitz, he just walked into Detroit today, and he was maybe the biggest standout out of everybody, and he's the rookie second-round pick. So John Michael Schmitz, I think it's safe to say, is going to be the Week 1 starter at center. I'm happy to hear that he was playing well during today's practice, the joint practice with the Lions. But before we dive more into some of these practice takeaways, Alex, I kind of want to discuss this unofficial depth chart that came out this morning because there's 3 main things that stood out to me, okay? Number 1, the offensive line. I just got into that a little bit with John Michael Schmitz being the first team center. That's great. But number 2 being on the offensive line, that's sub 2, okay? So talking about left guard here because Ben Bredesen, the starter, and Joshua Zito wasn't even listed as second or third team. Joshua Zito was listed as second team right guard. Again, it's an unofficial depth chart. I think that highlights that the most. But I was surprised to see that Joshua Zito did not win the starting left guard job on the first unofficial depth chart. I thought that he was really making a push for that. But one thing that I will say, it's good to see that Mark Lewinsky apparently turned things around. He's slotted in there at right guard. So before we dive into my 2 other takeaways from the unofficial depth chart, Alex, which are going to focus on the defensive side of the ball, I do want to get your quick reaction to Ben Bredesen being the leading man here for the left guard spot right now.
I mean, this is kind of what I said the other day. I think that he's going to start at left guard. I mean, I said this, yesterday? I projected him starting at left guard. Best case scenario is Zudo wins it because he's the draft pick, he's the younger guy, he's the cheaper option. But Ben Bredesen has the experience. He looked good last year when he was given the opportunity, and ultimately I feel like it's his job to lose. Zudo can be a fine swing tackle or swing guard. He can play a couple different positions, actually. He can play left tackle, did it at UNC. Obviously, that's a worst case scenario if he's playing left tackle, but, can play left guard. Right guard, Glowinski, maybe they just, and ultimately, I don't think it really, I think it's just like a semantics thing. I think it's just like, okay, we'll put him at right guard if we need to. I think Glowinski kind of has it locked up, as we kind of said during yesterday's episode as well, projecting the offensive line. Ben Bredesen, I feel like it's his job to lose. Now, it's not a bad thing to have Bredesen and Azudu be able to play both left guard and right guard. That's a good thing. That versatility is a good thing. So am I kind of looking too much into that? No, I think it's, he can play both. The fact that he's listed under right guard, again, I think it's a semantics thing. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I don't really think it means anything, to be honest with you, but like I said, this is not surprising to me. I think Ben Bredesen's actually a good player, and I think he's going to have a pretty solid season for the Giants this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that he probably will start the season out as the left guard starter, as we mentioned in yesterday's episode. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. But let's move on to my second takeaway from the Giants' first unofficial depth chart. And this one's a lot more exciting. Darren Beavers was listed as the second starter at linebacker. He was listed as the first team will linebacker, which I do think is really interesting because, as I said, all offseason long on this show, I'm expecting Micah McFadden to steal that job or just maintain that job because he kind of had it last year. Doesn't seem to be the case. In speaking with Patricia Traina a couple episodes ago, guys, go check that one out. That was a great episode. She gave us such great info from training camp. But in speaking with her, she said it looks like Darren Beavers is actually the man leading the way to take that position. And now that he's starting on the first unofficial depth chart, seems like she was absolutely right. And I do think that Darren Beavers is in position here. Now we go into this preseason game Friday. If he can put together a good performance, maintain this strong level of performance that he's put onto the field throughout training camp, I think he's going to be the day one starter alongside Bobby Okereke at the linebacker spot. So, Alex, how are you feeling here with Micah McFadden maybe kind of taking a step back? And maybe that's not even the case. Maybe it's just the fact that Darren Beavers is so impressive at training camp. He looks like he's going to go ahead and be the number 2 linebacker.
I mean, look, we all really liked Beavers last year. I was kind of putting out like a sense of caution because of the ACL tear, and like you don't ever want to like put too much stock into that. But the fact that he's already back and he's showcasing good progress and he's playing LB2 alongside Okereke, like that is like best case scenario. Look, we haven't gotten any value from late round draft picks. Beavers and Trey Hawkins are already showcasing that we may have broken that streak. Now it's really early and we don't know, but they're making good progress and you like to see that. Beavers is a big boy. He is a huge guy. Now there are a couple things to note with Beavers. He is slow. He's not good in coverage, but he's smart as hell. He has really good football IQ. And when I say that, he gets to the gaps. He fills the gaps well. He sniffs out screens. He sniffs out I guess post-snap things that are happening, maybe delayed blitzes, whatever it might be, or delayed, routes. And, he finds, he kind of gathers that information and like figures it out quickly and is able to get himself into good spots to make plays. So I think that's a huge benefit for him. McFadden, on the other hand, also not good in coverage. He kind of didn't really get himself into the best spots sometimes. But I will say, like, Beavers winning that job, I mean, it's up for grabs. Like, if Beavers won that job, I think it would be an upset simply because, McFadden has a year of experience and, was a 5th-round pick, I believe. So he definitely has the advantage in terms of those variables. But if Beavers is already ahead of him, maybe they just want to get him more action early on. Maybe they already know, like, for all we know, maybe they think McFadden has the job lined up, but they wanted to get Beavers more opportunities because he missed a lot of training camp last year. He missed a lot of time. They want him to see the experience, see if he can like expedite that growth. I mean, we don't really know yet, but it's definitely a good sign that he's getting reps alongside Okereke, and they're testing that out because a lot of people are really high on him. He's a true and tried, player at the college level. He's a really good tackler. Okereke is a good coverage linebacker. I think that in terms of stopping the run, he can be a really nice player for the Giants. He's not like that sideline to sideline speed type of guy, but he gets himself into the proper spots and he can make plays happen because of that.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about Beavers. And, one fun stat that I found this morning when writing an article about him, he didn't let up a single touchdown in coverage throughout the entirety of his collegiate career. Pretty cool. So, 6'4", 256 pounds. The guy is huge. Like, he is your old school size linebacker. We've seen in recent years the more modern NFL linebacker, 6'2", 220. Nah, this guy is old school.
He's got like Bobby Wagner size.
Yeah, he's a big dude. And so that's something that you just get excited about with Darren Beavers. And again, you take a look at the way that he's performed in the past. Last preseason, he started to light it up. He was running away with that first team job last year until that injury. So it's good to see him picking up where he left off. Seems like the injury really isn't slowing him down at all. I was reading that he's really fast, even on the drills on the side, like the agility drills. Looks like the quicker of the two between him and McFadden. So we'll see how McFadden performs. Maybe he goes into the preseason, dominates, pushes back, and tries to take this job back. But again, there's an interesting note from the first unofficial depth chart. Again, unofficial. But let's talk about this third point that I drew from the depth chart, Alex. And this is a big one. Darnay Holmes listed as the first team slot cornerback. Now again, how big is it on an unofficial depth chart? I don't know. But what I will say, tying this in with a practice report because I'm so damn good at podcasting, Darnay Holmes did have a pass breakup at today's practice against the Lions. Hell yeah, Darnay, finally getting your hands on the damn football. That's what we love to see. Who else got their hands on the football? Zion Gilbert did. He's listed as the third team slot cornerback behind Cordell Flott, who's on the second team, and Amani Oruwariye, who I've been telling you all to keep an eye on all offseason long. got his hand on the football with 2 pass breakups today against the Detroit Lions at the joint practice. So there's your DB report from today's practice and from the first unofficial depth chart. But Alex, hearing all that kind of stuff, Trey Hawkins getting his hand on the ball, Adoree Jackson having a pair of pass breakups in the one-on-one period, and again, Darnay Holmes being the first unofficial, first team on the slot cornerback on the unofficial depth chart. What are your thoughts on this whole mix that we're seeing here from these young cornerbacks?
I mean, I think that there's a couple things to look into. One, I don't think the Giants necessarily know what their starting cornerback group is going to look like just yet. But also, I think that they may not want other teams to know what their starting cornerback group looks like just yet. You know what I mean? Because if you're the Giants and you're preparing for the season, which for what it's worth is a month away, and you better believe they're already thinking about the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, in a couple weeks, obviously they'll start to ramp up a little bit more, but you got to figure out what's going on there. Darnay Holmes has the most experience in the slot of anybody on our roster. Like, that's objectively the truth. I don't really know if he's going to stick around, but we've seen much crazier things happen than, a guy like him getting cut. I mean, for what it's worth, Darius Slayton almost got cut last year, and the only reason he stayed was because he took a big pay cut. A lot of players who were starting at one point get cut. Blake Martinez, remember him? He got cut. I think it was a mutual thing, but, we've seen crazier things in the past happen. Ultimately, we just don't know how it's going to shake out just yet, but like Darnay Holmes starting in the slot, and I'm not surprised he was listed there because he was last year, but I wouldn't say his job is safe by any means. I'd say he's very much up on the fence right now. I think Cordell Flott ultimately wins that job, but we'll see how it progresses over the next couple of weeks. I know Bobby McCain had a good day today. I saw he had a nice pass breakup, so nice to see a cheap Julian Love alternative there. Making some plays. Obviously, played with the Washington Commanders. I think the last couple seasons, so he's a decent player. Has some versatility there as well. But it's fun to see Adoree Jackson in the slot. Maybe I think they may be just preparing for like the best case scenario that Trey Hawkins just like emerges onto the scene and like can play boundary corner at like a decent level. And with the way that the slot position is developing in the NFL these days, like for example, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a big day for the Lions today. And you look at Jalen Waddle, he's in the slot. You look at Tyreek Hill, he moves into the slot. Devonta Smith, he's in the slot. The NFL is just freaking chock full of really good slot receivers, and having a really good slot corner like an Adoree Jackson is a great thing to have. And Trey Hawkins has the tangible traits. He just needs the experience. Again, I don't think he's starting week 1 on the outside. I think that's Adoree Jackson's job. But with that being said, if an injury happens or, someone's struggling, or maybe the Giants are up or losing by a lot, hopefully the up part, they can throw in Trey Hawkins and see what he's got, see if he can go up against some better talent late in the game or whatnot. So I think that there's a lot to kind of gather the information here, but it's just too early to make any determinations. Way too early. Unofficial depth charts, guys. I mean, it's fun to look at, but they're nonsense. Like they don't mean anything except for the players that we know, are starting. It really is still up for grabs. Like if you look at the receivers, you're going to see like a ton of guys who won't be on this team in a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? Like it's just is what it is. Although Colin Johnson, man, big day today. Another huge, really nice grab. Colin Johnson's fighting his way onto this roster. I actually am not convinced that he's going to be released. I'd rather cut when the roster gets trimmed. I actually think that if it's between like Cole Beasley or Colin Johnson, I may consider keeping Colin Johnson simply because he's younger, he's better, he's probably more upside at this point in his career, and he's an outside guy, and he has size. Like Cole Beasley's 34 years old, and we have too many slot guys at this point. We have Shep, we have Wandale's going to be back earlier than anticipated, which they announced yesterday. So you have Paris Campbell, you have Hyatt who can play inside and out. We need more guys on the outside. We need more boundary receivers, and I think that Colin Johnson's a solid player that should be given an opportunity over an aging one like Cole Beasley, in my opinion.
I think that's a really good point, and I want to make a point to your point that Cole Beasley, I don't think he's any bit of a lock to make this roster, especially when Sterling Shepard is playing at the level that he's playing at. Now, I have been saying all offseason long, you guys are crazy if you think Sterling Shepard is not making this roster. Sterling Shepard is making this final roster. I will bet everything on that, and if I'm wrong, you guys can go ahead and come for my title as the podcast co-host for Alex. He can try out some of you fans that claim to know more than me on this show, but I am telling you guys, Sterling Shepard provides so much to this team, not only as a damn good route runner and slot receiver that can beat the ones, beat the twos, beat up on the threes. This man is a leader. He is your captain in the locker room, arguably, your unofficial captain. Now, the captain's going to be Daniel Jones, and the other captain's probably going to be Saquon Barkley, as it has been for the last several years. But your unofficial captain, that captain of that wide receiver room, that's Sterling Shepard, baby. We all saw him last season, after he tore his knee. He went out there and he went to every single game, traveled on the road to every single game, and basically acted as a coach for all of those wide receivers and all of those skill position players, and not only as a coach, but as the ultimate hype man. Sterling Shepard earned his spot onto this roster because of that last year. He didn't give up. He didn't go into sad mode and sit on the sideline all by himself or not even show up to the games, as a lot of players do, and not necessarily because they're in sad mode, but they need to recover. But Sterling Shepard fought through the pain, fought through the recovery to go to those games on his crutches with his brace on, jumping up and down anyway, which he probably shouldn't have been doing, celebrating his teammates. Sterling Shepard is going to have a spot on this roster because of that, and because of the fact that he is fully healthy right now, and he is tearing things up at Giants training camp. He was tearing things up against Giants players. Darnay Holmes was getting cooked by Sterling Shepard, but now he's also cooking with gas, as Art Stapleton said on Twitter today, against these Detroit Lions defensive backs. So I'm really excited to see Shep bouncing back. He's one of my favorite Giants players ever. I just love Sterling Shepard. So I'm really happy to see that he is fully healthy and he's playing well at these joint practices, or this first joint practice with the Detroit Lions. So Cole Beasley, while he's also been playing some damn good football, I'm siding with you on this argument, Alex. I'm going Colin Johnson over Cole Beasley, and Sterling Shepard in place for Cole Beasley as well, just because Colin Johnson, he's got that size, he's got that frame. That's what you need for the Giants' backup receivers, because we've got an abundance of slot receiver talent, okay? Multiple slot receivers are going to wind up on the Giants' practice squad. They could pull from that practice squad at any time if they need another slot receiver. Plus, as you said, Wan'Dale Robinson, he's almost back. He might be back on this team within the next week or so, activated off the PUP list. So when you factor all of that in, how many talented slot receivers the Giants have, I think Colin Johnson is worth hanging on to as a big-bodied outside wide receiver with regular season experience as well. I think we all forget he was a decent, solid starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years ago, has battled through some injuries, but he looks healthy and ready to go for the Giants wide receiver corps. So I'm going Colin Johnson and Sterling Shepard over Cole Beasley, but again, Beasley could be one of those guys that you find on the practice squad who can make an impact. Now, I think that there are a lot of really great takeaways from today's practice. Again, you're going to hear a lot of stuff about the Giants offense struggling, but there really were some standout players. And one other thing that I want to dive into before we wrap here, Alex, I want to talk about the punt return situation. Now, this is something that fellow writer of ours, Dylan Backer, shout out Dylan, he wrote about Eric Gray emerging as the first team punt returner, and not really only on the unofficial depth chart, but this is something Patricia Traynor mentioned to me. This is something we've seen all the beat writers talking about, and even Brian Dable talking about. Eric Gray has looked like the punt returner at practice lately, which I think is really, really exciting, because when the Giants drafted Eric Gray, I thought that he would be a good complementary back to Saquon Barkley. I didn't even consider his potential usage on special teams, but so far it seems like he is the Giants' punt returner, and they feel very confident in him going into this upcoming season as the punt returner, despite having very minimal experience as a return man in his collegiate career. So, before we wrap here, Alex, I want to hear your thoughts on Eric Gray, kind of the return man situation here for the Giants, because let's be real, for the past few years, the Giants have not had a good return game.
Look, guys, I'm going to make it really quick and simple for you guys. As long as we're not using our freaking cornerbacks, our CB1s as our punt returners, I'm fine with it. I don't give a crap who the hell returns our punts, as long as they have a two set of decent hands and it's not a Dory Jackson. Okay, that's all I have to say about it. I'm so happy that they're using a late round draft pick who is athletic, has upside, and he's basically not going to play that much this year because Saquon Barkley's saying, use him in some way. That is the perfect way to use him. Have him return kicks. Have him return punts. Let him be useful in some way. This is where Eric Gray can make an impact, okay? For goodness sake. I don't know why Gary Brightwell wasn't returning punts. I don't know why anybody, not Adoree Jackson, was returning punts. I don't understand that decision still. I think that's one of the very, very, very short list of things that I was like, what the hell is Brian Dable doing? Everything else was great. That was the one thing I did not get, and I think many would agree with that. But Eric Gray, fine player, make him useful in some way. He's got some good stuff. He's gotten a good athletic profile as a running back. Once he has the ball in his hands, you never know what he can do. He can break a couple tackles, get upfield, ground out a couple extra yards. Every yard counts in the NFL. It's a game of inches. How many times have you heard that? When you have a guy like Gray who can get that extra inch, get that extra yard, you never know. That's the difference between that extra foot that was a touchdown or went out of bounds, that extra foot or inch, that gets you a first down and keeps the drive going, especially in punt return situations. Like, think about how many times late in game, fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, opposing team punts, maybe to your 20-yard line, maybe there's even a minute left in the game. All you need, think about it, that 10, 15-yard difference, maybe he returns it for 10 or 15 yards instead of not getting anything at all. Whereas you have maybe a bad return man, I don't know, 15, 10 yards, suddenly you're in field goal range and you can tie the game up. It really is that close in the NFL. Use guys that are not going to, leave you freaking stripped at the cornerback position. Don't use your best receivers. Do stuff that logically makes sense. Get the most value out of Eric Gray as a rookie, especially with Saquon Barkley here. So I think that's a fine method. I'm actually really happy to hear that.
So am I, and for what it's worth, Khalil Pimpleton, who we've talked about quite a lot for having such an awesome name and for being a really good return specialist in his collegiate career. He's been working as the kick returner. Now you got Eric Gray at punt return, Khalil Pimpleton at kick returner. The Giants special teams is taking shape here. So I can't wait to see all these guys take the field on Friday night. I am so pumped. We, of course, are going to be covering post-game recap, all that good stuff about the upcoming preseason game, so make sure you stay tuned. But also, I'm going to be live on the channel tomorrow evening. If you're still sticking around in this 26-minute beast of an episode, tune in tomorrow, 8 p.m. Wednesday night live stream. Me and Allie talking New York Giants joint practices with the Lions live on the channel. Come check us out. But again, thanks for listening, guys. So much good content right now, so much good information coming out of these Giants practices, and of course, we're going to continue to update you on everything New York Giants right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.